Record the cloud. Okay, we are recording. And remember, this is all impromptu, people. Welcome to Coffee and Archival Talk. Today is the pre-celebration for Black people. What? Becoming free in the state of Texas, Galveston, that is. Okay, we got to get that right. This did not happen in the North. This happened in the South. I need you to understand that. Black people were already free in 1862. The Emancipation Proclamation was signed early in the year. Let's move forward. 1863, some more people got free. But Texans, which we're dealing with today, we're going to celebrate tomorrow, tonight, all this weekend, the rest of the month. But without further ado, I want to give a shout out to my co-host, Michelle Pollock, who is sick this morning. We miss you. We love you. And hopefully you're listening by phone. I don't know. But if you're not, it's okay. We're still going to have a good time. Also, how hot is it? You know, we always give a little news. It's 83 degrees in Austin, Texas, the state capital. What we deal with Republicans and Democrats. Okay, Republicans and Democrats. What else do I want to say about this morning before we get into this? So let's start out with a good quote. Optimism is an intellectual choice. Optimism is an intellectual choice. So our guest, without further ado, is Miss Azure Brown, Director of Institutional Records, CRM. I did change that in the document.
I appreciate it. I worked
community college. We have Miss Danielle McGee, and I got to give this shout out. The first African American manager, newly appointed, of the Austin History Center in Austin, Texas. And we were supposed to have Lamoya Burks, but I don't know if she's going to join us. But if not, we just want to send you love. Thank you for just, you know, emailing a sister. Okay. So we're going to get into this conversation. And the way we like to host this video podcast, you can keep your cameras off. You can turn them on. We're going to talk with the guests for like about 45 minutes. Then that last 15 minutes, we shift it over to the guests. So you can put questions in the chat, or you can email them individually, I think. Let me see. I don't know. Okay, so we got, so it's 74 degrees here in Boston. Oh, God, I'll be in D.C. on Monday. So let's see what it's going to look like then. 56 in Seattle. Well, that's nice weather. And we got coffee. Make sure you have your coffee or tea, whatever you're sipping on. You know, you can sip on whatever on this video podcast. Put a little bit in your coffee this morning. Okay, so let's get this going. I don't know where Miss McGee went, but okay. So, of course, remember, if you have things you want to put in the chat, you can. And I'll deal with that in a little bit. So I'm going to start out with Miss McGee and shift it over to Miss Azure Brown. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this into a speaker view so I can see one. Well, maybe I shouldn't do that either. Okay. Just speak to it. Okay. Okay. So please tell us a little bit about yourself, Danielle, and your role in your institution. And what does your current space look and feel like that you operate in on a daily basis? I know that's like 3 questions in one, so I'll break it down. So, okay, please tell us a little bit about your role in your institution.
Okay, can you all hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I am outside and I'm multitasking, so if it gets too noisy, just let me know. But I am the division manager of the Austin History Center, which is the local history branch of the Austin Public Library. And I'm newly in this role. I'm about 3 months in, formerly the library director at Houston Tillotson University, which is a HBCU here in Austin. And I am yeah, just really learning a lot about how things work in that space, and meeting with staff to figure out, you know, what has worked well for them, what hasn't, and what changes they would like to see. But also, I'm just in an observation space right now where I'm observing so I can put together a strategy to move the institution forward. And so if I could describe the space, and it's in the sense of the look and the feel, we are going through some renovation projects right now. So I am going to say that I would use the adjective transformative right now. We're in that space where, you know, there's a lot of old energy, but there's new energy there, and folks want to move things forward. So I would say it's a bit transformative right now.
Okay, and just to let people know, why we're interviewing African-American artists and librarians today is because we need to, okay? We need to highlight more of brown skin in the Society of American Archivists. So hopefully you're taking all of this in. And now we're gonna shift that conversation to Miss Azure Brown. As you hear my phone ringing, I am so sorry. I should have put it on mute. But here we go. So can you please tell us more about your role at the Austin Community College as the director of the Institutional Records Department?
Okay, sure. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Where do I begin? I've been at ACC for 18 years. This year, December will mark 18 years. And so I've held various positions within the department, ultimately becoming the director. And so I'm responsible for the records retention at the college, and any kind of document imaging, the departments are my clients. So when they want something or their records online, we work with them, you know, do a needs assessment and bring the stuff online. And I'm fortunate enough to where I have so much autonomy to build any kind of program that I really want, or the way that I want it to. And it's been an experience, but the beauty of it is that because I understand, I kind of operate off of the records continuum theory. And so I know that records, you know, some of them turn into archives, which is why I believe I was asked to be a part of it. And so fortunately for me, being able to advocate as a records manager for archives, we are now starting an archival program in ACC. So yay for archives for ACC. I'm really happy about that, because I've been advocating for about 5 years, just slowly, integrating it in a conversation. And so, hey, the squeaky wheel is all I can say, but it works, guys. You just got to be persistent and keep asking. So that's basically it.
Our new guest joined us, so I had to. Lamoya Burks is here, so can we? This is all impromptu, people. This is how we do the podcast.
Good morning.
Okay, this is a video podcast. This is our 6th podcast, and I'm so excited about the individuals that we've had the opportunity to interview. But this is our first podcast where we've had an all-Black entourage. I like that, entourage. Okay, Miss Lamoya Burks, what it do, boo? I'm so
Good
glad
morning.
to see you smile.
Happy Friday.
Let me welcome Miss Lamoya Burks. She is the YALSA Executive Director of the American Library Association, as well as the Director of.
I'm sorry. Oh, the Director
of the library.
Yes, Texarkana College, Head Librarian, Adjunct Professor.
So these women, we got parents. We got single women, we got parents, married people, doing all kinds of stuff and still serving in the community, which is why we all do what we do. So Lamoya, briefly and real quickly, can you tell us a little bit about your role in your institution and what does your current space look like or feel like?
Yes, so in my current role or roles here in the state of Texas, I have embarked on 10 years as head librarian, adjunct instructor, and that role also entails leading as faculty advisor. My space today is kind of dimensional. I would say a tiered effect. I am serving nationally and here locally. So I have the in-office space as well as the home space that I'm in today. With the flexibility, work-life balance is great, as we know. So I'm able to spend time with my son and my husband as a wife, but also fulfilling the duties that the community requires our students in higher education, while also the young adults and children throughout the nation. So it is a tiered effect that is in office and at home.
I just love Lamoria. Like, I don't even like to talk. When she starts talking, I just be quiet for real. I think that's the only person in librarianship that can make me be quiet. So the next question. So I'm giving this to you so y'all can think about it. We're gonna start out with Danielle again, if that's okay, Ms. McGee. What was the defining factor that made you want to enter the archival, librarian, or records management field?
For me, I think there's a few levels to what led me to deciding that, but I think for me, providing access to materials, especially for our communities of color. I think our profession, a lot of our communities don't know about archivists and librarians and what we do and the access that we can provide. And I think just an artist at heart, just, when I think about like photography in archives and just being able to create and use those images, I think that was like the initial inspiration when I was attending Howard and being in the libraries and seeing these like massive photographs from like the early late 1800s, early 1900s of different student clubs and student groups. And I was really curious to know how those images were preserved and how, they were displayed and just that whole process. And I think that particular opportunity, that experience just kind of like opened the door of curiosity. And I will just say my journey has been a very curious journey of, learning about libraries. At the time, I didn't know that you had to have a degree to like move forward in the library profession until like I met my friend's aunt who was working in DC at the US Patents Department. And she was like, oh, like library science, it's a field. This is how these are all the opportunities. And I just thought about growing up, always going to the public library. And I just didn't know like how, I didn't know about the profession in that way. And so I just feel like just through curiosity, I've been exposed to the field, and my dad is our family historian. So just growing up around, learning about family history, genealogy, how to find records, how to preserve it. I just thought that, and he's from Wilmington, North Carolina, so they have their own like history there. And so, when I talked to the family about, okay, preserving records, how important it is. A lot of people don't want us to know our history. This is an industry. This is something that, folks can do to, provide access to records and without any red tape or like any of that stuff. And so I just feel like through curiosity, through family history, it has led me to really want to explore this field, more in depth. And so, and providing access to our people and letting them know about it as well. So that has been my inspiration,
It sounds like you like your job.
So making sure people know, like they just know how to find things, and when people try to hide things from our community, it's like, no, like these are the ways in which you can find information, and people shouldn't hold you back, which is why I think it's so important that we are in our roles, because we can, lead that charge of opening the doors and providing access and making sure people know how to like do things and have the resources to do things. And so it's just so important for us to be in these spaces.
Thank you so much with that eloquent answer. And by the way I met Miss McGee, we started our jobs like the first week. I moved from Missouri. She moved from another city, and she was at HT, Houston-Tillotson, the first university in Austin, Texas, the state capital. It's not UT, people, okay? It's a Black institution. And I just remember us sitting, meeting, having coffee, and we said we would get through this, and we did. I resigned, she moved on, but life is still good, okay? Now we're gonna move to Miss Azure Brown. I have a relationship with each one of these women. So that question, what is the defining factor for you that made you want to enter the archival, librarian, or records management field?
From a professional standpoint, I stumbled upon it. I was kind of in a new season in my life, and I needed a job. And so I started in as a document imaging specialist, and just kind of went from there. And because I like to ask 11 questions, I was like, okay, is it a degree for this, like certification? I'm asking, and they were like, yeah. And I was like, get out of here. And so I totally knew nothing about it from that aspect. But, and this is where I'm starting to tap into, my spirituality. I believe certain gifts are innate and they're inside of us, and what we are naturally drawn to. All like eventually comes together, it's like multidisciplinary. And so I was a nerd, right? As a younger child. And so I used to get teased a lot because it wasn't really cool to be smart or to show any kind of academic ability. And the library was a safe space for me. I used to finish my work early a lot. And so my teachers would allow me to go to the library. And I told you the story. It was the moment that I read Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry, that it was just on from that point, and that was my book. And I used to go all the time, and to kind of piggyback off of what Danielle said, we used to walk to the library like it was a big deal, like walk to Austin Public Library and have our library card. And it was just fun just to read. I just remember very fond memories of the library. And so coming off and bringing that all together, being responsible for the family history. My aunt passed down like all of her photo albums, and she was like, I think you're the only one that's gonna take care of this stuff, and I want you to have it. And again, me asking questions, okay, who is this in this picture? Who is related to who? And how is this, where are we all at? And so that's kind of that historical piece that really tells a story. And then I've always known of archives, but not really. I know this sounds crazy, but I guess it's kind of like a librarian. It's like, oh, like this is a real thing here. Like people actually take the time to do this, and and again, it's important to know our history, share our history, and lovingly correct people, when they're inaccurate about it, and just knowing it. I think that helps us. It's important to me that like even my children know who they are, where they came from, and I need to be able to speak on that. And it helps with identity, confidence, so many things. And so I was like, who wouldn't want to be a part of that? I mean, I think that's just being a steward of your history, and really owning it and making sure. Because if you don't know who you are, like, what are you doing? I mean, you have to know who you are in order to be able to be your best self. And those small things that archival, the history and the pictures can tell, just can really make you stand a little bit prouder and stronger, and and just be bold and confident. This is why I act this way. This is why I have like a birthmark on the side of my face, and and you can like, that's really being on the shoulders of our ancestors. And so I mean, I just find it so intriguing and interesting. I can be on ancestry.com for about 5 hours. It's like and like not get up I'm like, oh, this person, my great grandma. I just think it's beautiful. And so it's a beautiful way to tell the story. And I love storytelling. So the art of storytelling. So all of those things are records management, because I like order, organization. I like how things are prescribed. You keep this record this long. and then you get rid of it. And then I like the historical piece. That's why I really love the records continuum, because it talks about time and space. And it's like such a you have to have critical thinking. And so when people say, oh, are you a clerk or you a librarian? So you just file stuff. And I'm like, oh no, sweetie, let me educate you real quick about what I do. And I love being able to do that. I'm like, that's a component of it. But the fact that I can say it's a science, I just absolutely love that. I'm like, oh no, it's a science to it, and I'm like, this is some real deal, let's do the Dewey, I mean, all of that. I just love it. I can go on and on about it, as you can see. So that's why I'm here.
So Ms. Lamoya, same question. The defining factor that made you want to enter the archival librarian director. Like, girl, I don't even know how you're doing right now, but please do share.
So just as a person, as a child, I loved all subjects. And so I think that because we are very talented people, and our profession really highlights the natural skill and talents that we have. Through that, I think that we're all able to be artists, as we keep hearing here. How we apply that is the more important piece that we find. And so though, I serve as professor, and that subject matter at this time is not necessarily library science, it can be woven into standard curriculum design. For example, the book, Are We Really Equal? Leads one to be intrigued by who we are. That can be tied to, as someone mentioned earlier, Ancestry.com. Those are the pieces in the higher ed classroom, even in YA literature, that help us explain positionality, the true definition of discrimination, equality, all of those defining definitions that we need to integrate and connect us as a people. During that, that experience or that journey as a student in the seat, the depth of using the skill base that we lead students in the community to utilize, again, in the artist sense, being that leader, I think that we all need to remember that before we're librarians, many of our families here will have repositories in their houses, right? The boxes, that your grandma has had of pictures that she's written on the back of. The gift there, even in churches, the same thing I find, especially the more rural we go. I think the gift that we have there is sharing virtually, as we're saying here, verbally, and then even demonstrating the skills that we have. So we're a culture, we're really big on sharing and passing legacy. I think that it's very vital as educators, library professionals, whatever we call ourselves, that we take that into the community. So when asking how do I apply it, I'm always challenging myself, how can I embed what we do on the clock into everyday life? So again, it just continues to go back to who are we? And if we want to know more of who we are, then we definitely have to connect the pieces. And the way we connect the pieces is having the conversation.
Like, did y'all hear that, people? That's just question number 2. Okay, like, this is Coffee and Archival Talk, the video podcast sponsored by the Society of American Archivists Women's Section. I'm Kimberly Keaton, your co-host, and my partner in crime, Michelle Pollock, is sick today. So just gonna give another shout out to her. Hope you're feeling better. Next question. We're gonna get into a little bit of COVID-19, because we still in COVID-19. When the New York Times stopped, when they stopped they have this little thing on there where, these numbers go up and down. People are in the hospital, folks dying, they got numbers of, When I don't see that no more, that's when I'm out the pandemic. I just thought I'd let y'all know that. Okay. So question number three. I'm a comedian too. What are some issues that you believe African Americans are facing in each of these fields today as a result of COVID-19 pandemic? And I will let either one of you answer that. Just raise your hand if you know how to do that little thing. again, the question is, what are some issues that you believe African Americans are facing in each one of these fields today that you represent as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic? As you know, a lot of people have resigned, some people have merged to, in other libraries, et cetera, et cetera. So I'll shift that to Lamoya. No? Yes?
Sorry, virtual experience. I lost you for a second on the screen. And it's just, I lost you all's faces here for just a second, which is important to me. It's about personalizing the service. And so I think our field has I'm gonna say an estimate of 6% of people of color. And so we're still looking at those trends to address, right? So even where enrollment is down on higher education campuses and beyond, we still have that opportunity to mentor. And what does that look like, right, in real time? So just as the pandemic has posed to us that there are some things that we can change, it posed to us that those things that we said we could not do, we can. And I think that we're challenged to actually step out and execute, because now is the time. Now is the time to design what it is that we need, right? We're at the table. We are the table. And we've proven that over and over again. And so now, instead of just it appearing to be a showcase, let's go ahead and let's run them out. Just as many of our mentors here, we're here because we have a strong presence because of who we stand on the shoulders of. So I'd like to say that we hold true to that. And part of that is we need to figure out where the gaps are and attract those. So for example, HBCUs, we need to consider increasing the number of library information science programs that exist on those campuses.
I think there are only like 4 or 5 in the United States right now. One at Lincoln University, North Carolina, Central in North Carolina.
So I can tell you, I am working with a group that is a potential that we look at targeting. I think that also in the ability to be able to approach those gaps, that we skill ourselves. In other words, that example would be, do you know and have you been at the table in SAC CLC processes? Because when we go to have those conversations, again, we have to be at the table, right? We've seen those examples, Keisha Lance Bottoms, the president in Tennessee State, so representation has proven over and over again, we can be at the table. When we go to the table though, are we equipped to be able to address those gaps that we know exist? That is what COVID-19 has presented to us, instead of looking at what we lost, right? Those individuals that we feel we lost, we haven't through archival processes. They still live through the ability for us to take the accountability in making sure that they are known. We're looking at Juneteenth weekend, right? Juneteenth still will live on as a commemoration because of what? Literature, our voices, right? And the continuous research of what exactly it was beyond what we've been told.
Nicely put. I'm telling y'all, when she start talking, I just stop. I'll be like, okay, I need a notepad right now. Okay, so Danielle, did you want to address that, or as the question again? What are some issues that you believe African Americans are facing in your profession, in your dynamics as being a new manager, as far as being a director in records administration as a result of COVID-19? And I'm looking at, in that question, those who have resigned, those who have changed, from librarian to new manager, or from associate archivist to university archivist, or who have just left the profession, period, or who are just newly coming in. So that's how I kind of formed that question, if you wanted to know where it came from. But if not, we can move on.
No, I mean, it's hard to follow Lamoya. I mean, she just drop the mic real quick, and I'm just like, I don't know if I can come after that. I mean, really, you know what? About that, I will say, I feel like this is the time, as a supervisor, to really pay attention to. I mean, because people are leaving. The Great Resignation is real, right? People are leaving. I feel like as a Black woman, the 10 times harder, 10 times smarter, 50. You got it. Every degree, certification, education possible, and you're still having to, or this has been something that I've been faced with, like it's not a lot of Black CRMs. Every time I've gone to the international conference or anything, it's just like, I'm like a flying milk, like, a lot of the times. And so, when you see, when you see somebody look like you like, hey, boo, like, like, what up? You trying to see, like, what age you trying to gauge? Like, can I sit next to you at the table in here? Because I don't see nobody else to look like me, and so I feel like right now, for the most part, people are where they want to be. And if not, that, they are slowly moving towards that. And I think this is a perfect opportunity to sit. Those people are there, that's because they want to be there. That's what I'm trying to say. And, I've had to try to find those talents and gifts and move, in a way, to kind of maximize the talent I do have. People are leaving and then coming in, and then they don't know anything. People think records management, I kid you not, they think it's putting a record in a file somewhere. And, and so when I'm even trying to hire, and when I'm recruiting people, when I'm telling other Black people about what it is that I do, and I'm not gonna lie, I do tell them because I feel like they don't even know anything about it. It's just, it's a task because, they ask about the money. They don't feel like it's, like I said, when I explain to them it's library science, and there is a science to it, it is a legitimate field, career. Like, no, even my family. So you're a records management manager. So wait, you're an administrator, and I'm just like, Jesus. Okay, and so I do think it's more important. Before I was on the board of Austin ARMA for 5 years, and one of the things right before I left in 2020 was to get people to try to recruit students. ACC used to have a library science associate's degree. They don't have it anymore, and so it's just a lot of things, just trying to, I advocate on my own for it. Nobody asked me to do it, but when people ask me what I do, I'm like, oh, it's perfect time, to try to get somebody. But I think a lot of Black people are tired. They have grown weary. And I mean, really in anything. And so they're very enticed about money. But I'm always telling people too, I mean, I don't make $1 million, but I mean, I do all right. But you really have to have a passion for what it is that you're doing. If you're not doing what you want to do, you can't be your best self, and you can't be creative. But one thing I'll say, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to agree with that. Because I'm a part of the Great Resignation people.
Yeah.
So if you don't like what you love doing, I'm the representation of you can do it differently as an archivist and librarian.
You can.
So we got all representations on here today. Mm-hmm. We got directors, we got entrepreneurs, we got, institutional records directors. Well,
and that's just it. And that's just it. When we're kids, like I can tell you, I wanted to be an artist, a teacher, and a lawyer.
And you are all those things.
And so, that's at 6. So then when we get to be about 13, we're expected to narrow their focus, right? But why are we not intrigued to go back to being that 6-year-old kid? Because I did.
Think that's what COVID-19 presented. Our profession, that 6% in librarianship, I'm gonna say 1.5% in Society of American Archivists. And when I say 6% in the American Library Association, I'm breaking that down to 4% African American, 2% for Asian, Hispanic, and any other, ethnicity.
So the thing is, even at, like, I do a radio show that specifically the audience is people of color. But that's an opportunity, just like this podcast, to communicate information literacy driven components that we need. whether, I mean, it doesn't matter if it's the weather, the 5 things you need to know. We've seen those examples in the past, Tom Joyner Morning Show. I mean, Sybil Wilkes. And so this is just another opportunity. Yes, you can be a librarian and host a show. Yes, you can be a librarian and be a hairstylist, and so it's just a question of how do you integrate, or how do you explain and give the elevator pitch for how the two go together, because they do. All things are connected.
Do you remember the last time we talked, Lamoya, and I was telling you about transitioning into fashion, and then you said, well, you can do both. And so that's what I started to do. So, fashion, if you really look at it, they're trying to introduce a digital component to it, right? It's like with the NFTs, if anybody knows about that. But the beauty of it is what? Man, that's library science. So I already have the foundation in it as it relates to blockchain and all of these things that need, so where you're saying, so look, me trying to utilize that master's degree, right? Interdisciplinary studies, and just find that point where they intersect. And I found that. And so, and that's a whole new love that's kind of been created as a result of, I'm bored, but I like this. But then that critical thinking and that systems thinking, like, how can this go together? How does this work? And so now, and this is archival science, it's library science, and it's fashion. The metadata, all of those things that are associated, when you create a digital library, right? Like you need metadata. So what do we have all those foundations. Art Library Deco, here's the plug.
So during the time of Great Resignation, what do we have to look forward to? And I often tell my students this: go back to the little boy or girl or whatever your gender, is. Go back to that child. If you like to color, how am I going to integrate this? My favorite sport was, I wanted to be an astronaut. You can be an astronaut in the library and figure it out, So that's creating and fulfilling and maintaining the inner scope of who we are and how we want to feel. The exterior is secondary to that, because you have to feel, as we know, and love and value what you do to be able to bleed that into communities. So that's that mental health piece that I know Danielle McGee, during her term with Texas Library Association Black Caucus, we held true to that during the pandemic. That is a very integral piece to the profession. It is interior and exterior, just like we're interior having this discussion today, right? We need to have these discussions today, and we're welcoming in the community because that's who we serve.
So with that right there, let's shift real quick to, and I'm going to start this out with Ms. McGee. She's been observing. She told us she was observing. That's what she started out with, people. Share with our audience ways in which you have managed to stay above the fray in your institution, despite being in a global pandemic. And I think this question is, very purposeful for you, being that, if you don't mind sharing with everyone where you came from and where you at today. In regards to HT, that's what I'm talking
about. So prior to my role that I'm in now, I was a library director and archivist at an HBCU, Houston Tillotson University. And, one of the things that I think always helps, no matter where you are, is knowing what your goals, your mission and your goals and objective, what they are, no matter what institution you're in, because that's always going to be your North Star to help your entire team stay focused on just moving forward. And even if you create like your own annual goals and your annual vision, that keeps your team focused on, just moving forward and creating projects around that, and just kind of having something to like help lead them and something to look forward to. And so I've always led with that. And but I'm always also, during the pandemic and even kind of still like in it, I am mindful of where we have been and where we are. And so with my new team, I've communicated with them that, it's important to reflect on lessons learned in the last 2 and 3 years as we've transitioned back on site, and to not forget the things that we learned so we can be mindful of that moving forward, because the way we work is different now. And I don't expect us to work in the same way that we've worked in the past. And so creating, I don't even like to say like going back to normal. I kind of go on the thought of like, how can we recreate normal and move forward in that way? And, you know, I think that's where having a mission statement and objectives and goals helps, but also just thinking about like what we just went through and what we're currently in and what lessons we're learning in that, and how we can apply that in our workflows now. So I am mindful that there are mental health issues that folks have endured during the pandemic. You know, Black folks, you know, George Floyd, before George Floyd, but like even more so because of the visualization of everything and seeing it, and then just seeing more cases moving forward. And it could be harder on communities of color in workspaces. And so I think, you know, just having open dialogue and transparency has helped. And that has helped everybody with, you know, just kind of staying, you know, above the grid with a lot of things. But, you know, some days are hard, you know, some days are hard for team members. And so making sure that folks who are supervisors understand the importance of having empathy and having that training is important, and just really equipping them with those types of skills. But, you know, knowing who your patron is, you know, at the institute at Houston Tillotson, working with students, you know, first year students, you know, students who maybe didn't really value the importance of getting help with mental health, approaching it in a different way. If they didn't want to go to see a counselor, letting them come to my office and talk one-on-one. You know, if we need to get the endorphins popping, I'm doing jumping jacks with students in my office. Like, okay, you got it. Like for 20 more minutes, you just have 1 hour class. Like, let's do 20 jumping jacks in the corner. Nobody's looking at you. Like, let's get it, you know, get it, students gassed up, you know. And so with this new community, it's a little different, but I think it's mostly working with the staff and just making sure that they feel supported and that they know they're supported if they need to like have a break, you know, because times are different. And so, so those are some of the things I do. I always just think about the North Star, just knowing what your mission is, having your internal like annual vision for your team, and just like following that, because you can't go wrong if you say like, you agreed to this, like, you know, I'm gonna support you here, you know, I need you to like communicate when things are going on, but you still kind of have to do your work. So like, how can we work together to accomplish the goals, you know? So those are some of the things that I do that I found to be helpful where I'm at and where I've been.
And I just like to give a shout out to these ladies, Miss Azure Brown, Miss Danielle McGee, Miss Lamoya Burks. Like, these people make me better. I really feel like crying, because it's like, you don't know, you know, when you see people who are brilliant, you know, like, it's like what Steve Jobs said, you know, I've all told you all of this, that my whole mission is having brilliant people around me because they make me look better. You know, like, I'm so serious just listening to each one of them. I hope you are seeing for yourself, you know, what they do in their community, seeing the confidence in which, you know, African Americans have had to deal with as far as something negative in this country, Black women being confident women. And these are very confident women. You cannot take that away from them, which is what I enjoy in regards to our friendship and in professionalism. So we only have 2 more questions, and I'm going to give this to the audience real quick. I would just like to know personally, what are y'all going to do for Juneteenth 22 this weekend? Just real quick. And then just anything you'd like to share about your future programs, if you can just include that with that answer, and then we'll shift it off to the audience. So I'll start with Azure, and you have 40 seconds to answer that question.
I plan on really kind of laying low because it's too hot. And so I, you know, send virtual love to whoever I can, but I plan on telling every Black person I see happy Juneteenth for the entire weekend. That's my plan. Wherever I go, I don't care. I might tell some non-Black people too, because they do it for 4th of July. So, and then my future plans are I would like to create the first collection at ACC to be in commemoration of just prominent Black people in that have contributed to things in Austin. And I know that's very generic, but I don't want to give too much, but I'm excited about that because I'm learning, and then I get to share what I've learned about my history with not only the college, but the city of Austin as well. So, whoop, whoop.
Miss Danielle McGee.
For me, I am going to, being that I'm an Austinite, we have certain areas, you know, Rosewood Park, east side of Austin. Definitely want to go and check out some events there, but we do have some archivists that will be at the Carver Museum, just sharing information about the Austin History Center. And in the future, I know we are planning a museum day at the Austin History Center. And so my goal is, my tagline for the Austin History Center as we move forward is to elevate the multicultural and the multi-generational history of Austin. So that is, those are the areas we'll be focusing on for Museum Day. So just more to come on that. We're in the planning stages, but you know, getting things going for that.
And Ms. Burks.
So the audience can't see, but my boys and I, of course, will be reading. I have smaller children, books on Juneteenth. I am a commissioner for our city library, so making sure that we have followed through with our plans to showcase. Our city also has a parade that was actually created and organized by a child about 13 years old. So we're going to make sure that we go out and support that. And then the NAACP, alongside a youth organization called the Scholars, will have a rally. So we will also be attending that as a family. I can tell you that YALSA, the division that I am leading through American Library Association, today we will be highlighting a Juneteenth book for YA readers. And also be on the lookout for the YA blog, which will give special attention to Juneteenth. But because of our strong strategic plan that does a calling for EDI focus, being led by our Executive Director, Tracy Hall, throughout American Library Association, we won't just stop at Juneteenth talking about Juneteenth. You will be able to see it interwoven in our book list, our programming, and beyond. So
Let's go, baby. Woo!
And Kimberly Keaton, your co-host today, will be at the Carver on Saturday at 11, talking about Juneteenth and genealogy and tracing these steps and finding your people. And if you've already found them, let's get to 1860. Let's keep going so we can get back to the motherland, which I will be visiting beginning July 30th through August 12th, people. I will be heading to Ghana. I got to tell everybody that. Okay. So now I just want to give a clap real quickly to the guests. We're about to open this up to the audience. If you'd like to turn your cameras on, if you want to put something in the chat, now is the time. The doors are open, the windows are open, our ears are open for your questions. And if you don't have questions, I can continue to ask questions. Believe that. Like, I'm a real journalist. And just to segue off of someone, you know, librarianship, you can be anything that you want to be. That is the beauty of why we do what we do, because we can do whatever we want to do. And I've never found a profession like that. It's hard though, but anyway. So I saw a hand.
Yes, that was me. Hi, everyone. I had a question for Danielle. I'm a student still, so I haven't officially worked in the field. And I know you're just 3 months into your job. And you mentioned new energy. So can you tell us what the challenges were bringing new energy into a field and how you're received by the old energy on the job?
Great question. Very great question. You know, you have to have thick skin because, you know, I am working with a city entity. Well, you know what, I will say for me, one of the challenges was coming from academia to transitioning into working with the public. So it's different in the sense that the city is a machine. It's a machine, and they have their own rules and regulations, and so you have to learn a lot of that stuff before and as you're working in your actual role. So I will say that the challenges are that, but I think with the new energy, with the mixing the new and the old energy, as I am in this new role and I've been observing, there is the pressure to make immediate changes. But there's a lot of old history and old energy and microaggressions and people who have, seen a Black woman in this position is definitely not what a lot of people wanted in the city. And so, and I wouldn't say everybody in the city, but, folks who have like old white history, this is definitely a challenge for some people. And so I think I'm grateful that I do have support from my directors and associate directors, and that helps with the challenges that I have. But I think everything happens for a reason, and you're called to certain things for a reason and for a season. And so with that, I think the challenges have been learning and understanding that, but also creating, the rush to feel like you need to create a plan now to move it forward. But things take time. It takes time to undo, and it takes time to like redo and move things forward. So I think being patient with myself and being patient with how things work and the bureaucracy around that is something that I would say are the challenges. But naturally, I'm a positive, optimistic person. And I know if something is not working for me, I know that I can support myself if I want to do something else. I'm a multi-talented person. And so you just have to know who you are and know what you bring to the table and know when it's time to shift and transition. So, I'm learning and growing where I'm at. And I am always up for new challenges. I think, in my previous role, I enjoyed it, but I also felt like it was time for me to grow and challenge myself in new ways. And that's okay too. It was hard because I enjoyed working with students. I'm passionate about working with kids, but there was no way for me to like really progress in that position. And so it was just time for a new challenge, and this is the new challenge. And so I'm taking it on full force and learning like what has been going on and just figuring out how to, remodel it and move it forward and take the good and then, leave the bad and just move forward. So, but as a new student, I'm sorry. Go ahead. As a new student, I think just having the self-awareness to know what your strengths and weaknesses are, in knowing like how to align that in the sector you choose to go into. Do you know which area you're interested in?
I'm in archives management, but I haven't defined it further than that. I don't know specifically where I'll end up.
So yeah, I would just know, I would have personal goals. I think personal goals is going to help you because in some institutions, things move slow. And so just knowing like how long you want to be somewhere to gain a certain skill set and move forward. Like with archives, things take time. So when you start feeling frustrated, just know like, okay, this is a part of it, or no, it's time to move on. And so I tell people that all the time. Like if you're somewhere and you're frustrated with how things work, either redesign and be intrapreneurial or move forward and try something different. But take the skills, learn the skills, and move forward. Don't be afraid to move forward. So.
Yeah, I'm over here in the background, Anita. Because just watching their stories, and in your question, I think where we are today, that whole great resignation, like just not thinking about that as in you're resigning, but thinking of flipping it you know, what can you bring to the table, to this institution, to your career? You know, and what do you want to do? Because see, people always talking about, well, I'm filling out this job. No, what do you really want to do? Do you really want to work in an institution? Now, this is the entrepreneur talking. That's the division manager talking. Two totally different worlds. But I came out of that world as well because I realized I didn't want to do that. Okay. So there are different worlds for you to enter into. But one thing I will say with, you know, and I agree with everything that Danielle said, my mentor, my coach here, I'm also a PhD student. Last year of coursework, people, can we snap coming up? Okay, in the fall 2022. One thing Dr. Anna Cleveland told me when I began my career as a librarian, as a graduate library student, she said, you know, for you, Kim, and she was talking to me specifically as the artist, you need to know where you want to go. Because if somebody chooses something for you, you're not going to be happy. And I can't even see you in the building for 2 weeks. So what do you want to do? And I think it's a very important question. Do not allow people to put you somewhere. You put yourself somewhere. And then find that mentor team, find those allies. And that's something I had to learn. We have to have allies. These are my allies here, as far as my friends, as far as my professional doors that I can knock on and ask those questions. But I think that's something very major, to know where you fit, not where they want to fit you. And archives, because it's not many of us, okay? Like, it's like 1 to 2%.
Look, and if you don't like it, do something different. Somebody told me several years ago, if you could wake up every morning and you feel like you like what you're doing, then you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. If you don't like it, whose responsibility is it to change it? I mean, or if you don't like what you see in the system that you are in, then create another system, create your own system. You don't have to follow the rules, right? Like, not those type. I mean, it's your life. And if you don't like how it's going, then change it. I mean, you know, develop a plan to change it and do what you want to do, because you're the one being miserable. You free yourself, liberate yourself in whatever way that looks like. If you, I mean, you know, hey, if you got to be the Harriet Tubman of the crew, you know, then that's what you do. But that's what it's about, not being tied to not only those types of systems, financial system, debt, we can go on and on. We talk about a whole lot of it, but just ultimately, are you happy with where you are? Are you content? And if you're not, but you like archives, then create your own library, create your own this, create a nonprofit to educate people. What's those little book libraries in the neighborhood? I mean, it's little libraries. You can do a million things. That's what I'm saying. Like, you can still be in the field, because that's what school is for, to equip yourself to do what you want to do. You don't have to that doesn't have to necessarily be an organization. It could be one that you create.
So one question turned into, like, you know, 6 more minutes of conversation. But we have to end this, people. This was so amazing. I need my guests to stay on for like 1 minute after we shut all this down. But we got to end, you know? So I'm gonna leave a scripture with you. Okay, like, let me do this, like, you know, do it real quick. Y'all need some prayer cards. Okay, go get you some prayer cards. Because we all need them. Okay, behold, you are beautiful. Song of Solomon 4:1. If y'all know about Solomon, I mean, he told a lot of folks they were beautiful. That's the joke, people. That's the joke. Okay. I hope y'all have a great weekend. Thank you for joining us for our special Juneteenth. I know Hollis, like, yeah, because Solomon had a lot of concubines, and I will not be one of them. Okay. So I hope y'all have a great Juneteenth. And I hope you got something from this conversation. I want to thank Ezra Brown, Danielle McGee, and Lamoya Burks for joining us. So appreciative for everything that you gave us today. And Ms. Danita, you got it. You got it. You got this. Okay. All right. Y'all have a blessed one.